Okay, we're ready for the continued public hearing for flexible development plan and density determination plan for 405 Concord Road. And if people talking in the hall could move down a little bit, that would be wonderful. All right, so I think what we're doing here is discussing the changes and modifications to the drawings in the requirements, design requirements for the three-lot flexible subdivision, and you're going to take our comments, make adjustments, and come back to us at the next meeting. So this is an informational meeting for the most part, for people who want an update on where things stand. And having said that, please describe what you're going to tell us.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Mark Bobrowski, representing Concord. For the record, Jay's going to go first. He's talking about the adjustments to the plan, and then I'll hand out a 6-page specification sheet that we've developed for lots 1, 2, and 3 over the course of the last few meetings during workshops.
So what I'll do is I'll run quickly through the entire plan because everybody was at the design meeting. So we have the 3-lot subdivision. We have lot 1, of course, which is the existing house. Lot 2, which is basically comes with this section here along this back side. Basically makes that triangle shape. And then you have lot 3, which comes all the way from Concord Road through the neck and then up through this back side of the lot. So with all the design meetings that have been ongoing, we've been putting together some site development areas, some building development areas, height restriction areas, that kind of stuff. So for lot 1, basically we've come to show the limit of work along the outside, along the actual existing driveways, along the path, the car path on the side, and along the tree line. For lot 2, we have the limit of work that basically shows all the development that happened outside the meadow area. Basically, they have a development box that's in that section there, which is we show as 100 foot by 100 foot, just the actual house inside there. Inside that development box, we show a 15-foot wide height restriction area, which we'll describe in the actual design documents that talk about different types of heights that will be allowed inside that section. We also have this two small secondary disturbance areas if required. One is for the utility connections, for basically the septic system and the underground recharge basins. And these are the areas, we pick these areas that eventually we're kind of giving them an area to use, but of course it's going to be through approval through the planning board. But these are the areas that have the least amount of vegetation, so that's how we pick those areas. And then we have a small little section here in case we need some extra area as allowed by the planning board to do some additional grading on the upgrading side of the house. We also show, for this section down here, we show the proposed driveway up to just past the existing house at 1 Concord Road. It's 14 feet wide, as we discussed, eventually settled on. We have all the grading, all the way up to the actual design location of the driveway, including retaining walls as required to fill out the section that goes through the tennis court. And then we have a bunch of the proposed plantings through that area. And then as we get up through this section here, we have this section C, which these are some sketches. This is what we had discussed last week.
Be able to turn out for the fire truck on the 14th.
Yes. Yeah, actually, that. And so through here is the area that we had talked about having that floating driveway section area. And so if you look through, you've basically cut this area in thirds. This top area, there's about a 2-foot grade change. This middle part, there's about a 4 to 5 foot grade change. And this lower section is a 6 to 7 foot grade change. So what we did is we put a detail together, Dave and myself, and we kind of worked out what would work, in the worst case scenario, if they kept the driveway on the lower section, if they had about a 6 to 7 foot grade change they had to work with, and using the design parameters that were mentioned about having walls that couldn't be greater than 18 inches tall, this would be kind of the scenario that would work out. So you end up with basically a disturbance area of about 30 feet. That's what it works out to be. And then if we basically throw 5 feet on either side for a limit of work, that ends up being 40 feet in that section. And that's the worst case scenario, using the worst grade change through there. If we were allowed, if we look at the design documents and allow us to go to more from an 18-inch wall to a 3-foot high wall or a 2.5-foot high wall, we could shrink that down to 35 feet or so.
Okay, so you could reduce it another 5 feet.
Exactly.
You'd have to have a wall twice as high.
Right.
We couldn't quite remember where the 18-inch wall thing came from. They didn't want to just unilateral, but so I asked them to look at it with the high wall. So I couldn't remember where that came, or if that potentially for for that area where there wouldn't be.
Existing walls are about that high.
Yeah.
The existing stone walls are all about it. They're not very high walls.
Yep.
So,
And you're only going to see this if they go with the lower section. If they go up here, like I said, there's only, for this upper third, it's only a 2-foot grade change. So you're not going to even see this type of disturbance. And then for the next sections, we have A and B, which is A is where the development for the primary building is. We have a 30-foot wide for this whole length restricted height area. And then we have this B section, which is for the pool area, the recreation area, and the single-story structures. We have placed plantings throughout from all the planting areas. I received an email from Joe today about reworking some of the heights. I put too many of the taller trees. I had to bring them down a little bit. And then as Stephen mentioned, here's a little section right here. So basically what I have is here's the proposed hydrant, and what we did is we have a 5-foot bump out for this strip along this edge. And I'm going to do a sketch to Joe, so I'm going to blow up that area so we can show that to the fire chief, though, to show them, basically allowing them to get by. The truck width is about 10 feet for the town, so if I was assuming if they were set up for the hydrant, how much width for another truck or a vehicle to get by.
The fire chief thought 30 feet was adequate length, but by allowing him to review a blown up section of that plan, at least we'll be able to get consensus whether or not that is fine or whether it needs to be just increased in length a little bit.
just out of curiosity, on lot 1,
Yeah.
Could you just go over the no disturb area?
Sure.
in lot 1?
So what we have is starting on the kind of western side. Here's the existing driveway. So what we try to do is we have the sitting wall through here, so we kind of brought it around just a few feet on the other side. We're all on this edge, and then we have all the existing utilities through that section. So I just ran it right along that edge, and then what we did is we tied in. I set it 20 feet off the garage so we get access to that water line to come through there. So this is 20 feet off there. So I just kind of circled, tied in there. This area is basically 2 feet off the driveway all the way around. And then we have this little bump out, turnaround section that just runs all the way around, 2 feet off, right up to the property line. So as we come back over on this side, we follow the car path down. There's another car path right there, so I just run it along that edge. And then I bring it down and run it right along the tree line, and then along the property line, and then I bring it back out and around to save that wall, and then run it right along the property line there.
Just out of curiosity, why not include some of that meadow in the no disturb? I mean, what's the plan for the meadow?
There's no specific plan. This was off this kind of the sketch that I had from with the red line you had given me.
Yeah.
And then there is some drainage systems. We only show some of this. This is from sketches from Weston Tree Landscape. So I know there's some other drainage systems in here that I don't know exactly where they are. So, but I know if I contain it out here, then I know I have it all within the limit of one.
The footprint for lot 3 is the house size related to the footprint is around 10,000 square feet, more or
Yeah.
less.
Yeah.
More or less.
All right.
I mean, if the house got bigger, the sections would simply grow by 2 feet. That would account for that.
Right. And in lot 2, the footprints shown is for a 6,000 square foot house.
Roughly 5,500 square feet. Again, adding a foot or two to any dimension would push it up or down.
Yeah.
And also in lot 2, the zone for the lower roof,
Yes.
you said is 15 feet deep in lot 2.
Oh, yes. Lot 2, yes. This section right here runs the entire house development area. It's 15-foot wide.
So I was wondering if we thought about that being wider than 15 feet,
It-
like 20 or...
It's, there's space between the wall and where that zone starts. You can't,
Right.
anything.
We,
Right.
in a working sketch, we had that as like 25 feet off the stone wall. So the 15 feet
I
includes
see.
the 10
Okay.
feet
Yeah,
from the stone wall
It
that's set
actually-
aside
It's
as.
40 feet off the stone wall now. Because I said the limit of work is 20 feet off, and then we have 5 feet to this development area, then you have another 15 feet, so that the back edge of that area is 40 feet off that wall.
Maybe it would be useful if I hit some of the narrative highlights so that everybody got a complete picture. And
Yeah.
I'll ask Marcus to fill in for me if I missed something. So you all have the handout that I gave you. I'm just going to hit the
I don't
highlights.
think any of the neighbors do, or do they?
I did.
I don't.
Well, you can have
Well, that
one.
might-
Thanks.
Okay, I'm just hitting the highlights. So questions, if I miss it. We're going to do, this is with regard to Lot 1, bottom of the first page. We're going to
Does
do a
anyone need another
photographic
copy?
record
I'll take them.
of the existing house so that we have a record of what was in place. On page 2, basically, if you're changing anything, including modifications to topography, landscaping, driveway, stone walls, existing structure, special permit review and approval to follow. In the event, under 3, second bullet, top of the page, that new lighting is added to the house on Lot 1. This is Ann's and Jim's existing house. Then the total in the aggregate is 15,000 lumens. It's not intended to be a fixture by fixture limit, but in the event there's reconstruction or renovation. So Lot 1 basically stays as is. There will be an easement from Lot 1 up to Lot 3 for water purposes. Jay, if you could point that out, so that we loop the water and provide a better service to all the houses and make it easier for the town to maintain the system. With regard to Lot 2,
Before we get to Lot 2,
Yep.
my only comment on the changes for the lighting is that it should be clear that the aggregate of any lighting, if new lighting is installed, the aggregate of all lighting can't exceed 15,000 lumens.
I think that condition's still a
It's
work
just
in
in the
progress.
aggregate, but
Yep.
I'm just not sure it's clear. Just make that comment.
Will do. With regard to Lot 2, construction is limited to 6,000 square feet in the aggregate, or it could be a 5,600 square foot building with a single-story ancillary structure of no more than 400 square feet. We just discussed that in this area, which is very hard to see, but there's a line, the low facade of the building will face the meadow, so there will be a height limitation on that facade to minimize visibility for the neighbors. Ancillary structures shall not be visible from the meadow. I'm under number 2, second bullet. There's a lot of description of what will happen with regard to architectural constraints. Top of page 3, the first paragraph with the green in it is just a repetition of the 15-foot height limitation in the front of the box. Down the bottom of Lot 2's standards, second to the last bullet, building attached and non-building attached exterior lighting limited to 15,000 in the aggregate. The very bottom, go
Can I
ahead.
just ask, what is the highlight at the top of page 3 about?
It's the, I think that the note from Joe was before we agreed that we would put the box there. And so we just need to tune that up in the next edition. Very bottom of the page, we still have to come up with a percentage for cut and fill. In the construction on Lot 2, the attempt is to balance, but we need a little bit more flexibility, and I think Dave and Jay may have talked about that in the interim.
Yeah, me and Jay's thoughts were to be more direct. On Lot 2, the desire is that the existing grade stays close to what they are now. So we want to say that, and then Jay, we thought, like, limit any cuts or fills to 2 feet in that box. And so we don't get into some wacky backhanded way of someone digging a 1,000-foot deep 6-inch hole so that he can fill it up, that type of thing. So we want that, we just want to be more direct about that. So we're going to get away, I think, with cuts and fills and just say grades can't be changed more than 2 feet.
Middle of page 4, existing stone walls. That's meant to refer to the existing stone walls on the perimeter of the property. They will not be touched. As you head towards the bottom, towards E, the sound generated by condensers, compressors, other mechanical equipment, 40 dBA as measured at the boundary of the flexible development, not the interior lot lines, for example, between Lot 2 and Lot 3. Lot 3 is the last set of parameters here. Under 2, it's a limit of 12,000 square feet in the aggregate, or 11,400 for the house and 600 for the ancillary building. Top of page 5. I think all the rest of this is largely architectural style, but there is again this limitation in this box facing town center, and this is a lower facade requirement for the building, so it minimizes visibility. Bottom of page 5, exterior lighting, 22,000 lumens in the aggregate.
If there's a pool.
If there's a pool. And very top of page 6, with the chiefness, I think now signed off on a 14-foot driveway width, and I think Jace explained how it's going to be in that box, but we're not sure the exact location today. So you can see there's a lot of hard work that went into this, and we want to thank Al and Steve and Joe and Dave and Kim and Tom for the hard work that they put into it. Thank you.
Good. I mean, I think it's, I think we're in a good place personally.
With your permission, I plan to pay a visit to Joe on Friday morning and try to work out some of the other conditions, for example, timing of easements and other typical special permit things that need to be done, with the hope that we would have a document ready for the meeting in 2 weeks.
Any comments from anyone in the audience? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Leslie Benson, we live at 43 Concord Road. In the past, when we've been at these meetings, there was talk about Lot 2 was like a distant idea. What are the plans as far as timeframes for within the Lot 2?
I don't think that's changed at all. We actually hope and think that the buyer of Lot 3 would buy Lot 2, but there's certainly no plans to develop it on the owner's part in any immediate future.
And Lot 3?
For a second.
With Lot 2, I mean, we've gone to pretty extensive lengths to minimize the impact as much as possible. A couple of things that were mentioned in the explanation. We've moved the house back from the stone wall, and we've kept the wall height on the part nearest the meadow to 17 feet above what is the current grade level. So it's as low an impact construction as we could make it from the perspective of anyone looking across the meadow at that line of trees. We've also stipulated coloring of the building to be recessive so that it sort of fades back into the woods. And so we've really worked hard to establish limits on that house that minimize the impact from across the meadow. And you know, I want to reciprocate and thank the applicant. I want to thank all of their team for the work that you've put in as well. I think it's been a good joint effort on everybody's part. I just want to say that for the record.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And it seems to do the one thing that we always wanted it to do, was present all the things
Great.
nice.
But if anyone has, I mean, we'll have 2 weeks now to look at the documents, review everything they say, come back, make comments. If you have any comments, email them to Joe, and we'll discuss them at the next planning board meeting, and hopefully that'll wrap it up. I think we're getting that close.
So what I can do is I can label them as draft, but I can put them on the planning board website, the plans, the cross-section, and this document, so that people don't have to worry about contacting me by email and have it go up that way. It probably won't happen until Thursday, but it'll be definitely by Friday, since who knows whether or not there will be anyone in Town Hall tomorrow. So, but at least that way, you can take a look at it, you can forward it around to anyone you want, rather than just trying to rely on the email from me. And of course, any questions, feel free to send me in advance of any meeting that we have in 2 weeks.
Great. Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sure. Of the plan, that's what, if you email me, then I'll just reply. I'll then just send it right back to you. So, well, there's the plan that was shown, there's the cross-section, and then this draft document I can show. Yes.
Oh, we were looking, they got them on your trees? You usually do that when it's tagging the trees. Get them because there's so many of them. They're not supposed to, they shouldn't have done that. It's biodegradable, but I'll see if I can get it. Let's see if I can get it wrong. I apologize. I shouldn't say they might have got lost. So when it's on our property, it's one thing. No, yeah, no, I understand. I'll get it good.
You can't see it.
Right. All right, I'll see you guys.
I don't know. See ya. See ya.
See ya. Later, and I know you guys.
Our standard is for site plan is 22. So it's like 2/3 of what we allow for standards.
So we really follow those rules.
I'm going to be.
I'll call you.
Your lever and this is just.
So unachievable. I was going to say so unachievable. So all we do is deny by neighbors. 26 and 25.
We're still paying for it. It's right there. And they, one's working at new restaurant in Wellsbridge.
And the result?
The local.
I missed it, like a lot of these last couple.
No, I know.
Yeah, and so it's like, yeah.
They're
So it's like,
really good consignment store.
hats off to- my hats off to the two.
I only know that because Chris and I
It's
lived
like
there.
for all.
Well, when you were talking last time, I mean, in a good way.
I wanted to.
Yeah.
She was there, the heat was off.
We're gonna get together.
We
Almost.
went there, we walked over there, and the woman was there
It's
herself.
not like a,
She
it's
said,
not a
"Oh,
curious.
it's
Yeah, it's a lot of late
It's
nights.
like American style.
Quiet here
Not much.
for the
Thank you
town.
very much.
And
Well,
we're
and I
well
mean,
loved. We are well loved.
I'm not exaggerating.
Well, no,
Have you seen that?
Good job.
Well, in the front end,
She's
you
working
were.
at school
Sort of
for
like that,
wearing on the left.
Thank you.
Administrative assistant for a doctor in Somerville, homeopathic doctor. And he's doing carpentry with another guy.
Right,
So
that's
and
why
living
we're
in Austin.
Oh, yeah.
Again, thanks so
Sorry,
much.
Andrew. Yeah.
I wanted to go with you guys, but I was just,
Yeah.
What street?
Slam.
Is this where we're adjourning the meeting?
Oh, yeah, we need to move to adjourn the meeting.
People write in
So
the
moved.
conversation about it.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Of course,